Good morning, everybody. Wow, at the Department of Education, they're trained to say good morning when you say good morning. It's excellent. But welcome all of you to the Tweed Courthouse. My name's Tony Shoris. I'm the first deputy mayor for New York, and I came this morning because I wanted to greet you and spend a few minutes with you just talking about what an enormously successful and exciting opportunity this is. It's also an opportunity for me to just share a couple of thoughts about why this event is so important to everything this administration is about. First, again, I want to thank everybody for being here, especially bright and early in the morning. I want to thank many city commissioners who are sitting in this room or up here at the panel, and particularly Dr. Hector Cordero Guzman for helping us through this conversation that we're going to have this morning about the value of inclusive leadership in governing cities like New York. A year ago, when this mayor laid out his vision for an equity agenda, kind of the driving, organizing principle of this administration, he shared a vision for reshaping New York in many, many dimensions, and one of the most important is in this room. His vision was, and it remains to this day, anchored by the promise of equal opportunity for all New Yorkers. He said we can bridge the divides that exist in education and healthcare and affordable housing, in employment, in resiliency and community well-being, if we can work together as one city, in his phrase, rising together, to promote greater equality. Now, a lot of people in this room know what it feels like not to be included, because you're different in some way, whether it's your race or ethnicity, your gender, your orientation, or your disability status. You know that when somebody feels inequality in terms of housing or jobs or economic potential, it's a consequence that affects you and affects your community and actually weakens the whole city. Because the human potential of New Yorkers is obviously the city's greatest asset. And when it's not fully realized due to some equity gap, we can't compete globally, we can't develop the workforce we need, we can't tackle the issues that matter to us, that are facing all of us in this room, if we don't do it taking full advantage of the strengths of New Yorkers. And that's why diversity is so important. And diversity not just in the city workforce in general, but obviously in the leadership of the city. We actually all know that it's not unique to New York City government. We know there's plenty of research that shows the best and most innovative ideas come from organizations that are diverse, and you've all read those studies, and you know how important that is to making organizations effective, to making them creative, to making them responsive to what the challenges anyone's facing. It's not news to anybody that New York has always been the country's melting pot, the collection of talent and culture and ethnicity and experience that all come together here. But historically, for as long as I can remember, and I've been in and around these buildings for 37, 38 years, city agencies have sometimes fallen short of their goals in having the leadership teams that reflect the demographic mix and the range of social identity that makes New York so strong. But I want to assure you of one thing. We're in this room because this administration is committed to turning the page on that long history and improving the level of diversity in recruitment, promotion, development of the leadership of the city workforce. But we need help in doing that. We need help in finding sources for the diverse talent that's so important to the city. And that's why we brought in this room not only commissioners and their human resource leads and their hiring managers, but we want to connect them with the other half of this room, who are the leaders of organizations that represent the diversity of the city that we're here to serve. Diversity like that has to become deeply embedded in the way we think about leadership and excellence in this government. And we spend a lot of time, many of us in this room, Chloe, for example, others who work at City Hall, but in every agency, thinking about how we're going to do that, because diversity can't be a project for us. It can't be an issue or a concern or a problem. It has to be built into the way we do business in the government, in the way we hire, in the way we contract, in the way we use our resources, in the way we allocate those resources. And that's possible only if we embed that commitment to inclusiveness and diversity unflinchingly and diligently in everything we do. So today, we're here to ask your help, your ideas, your leads, your continuing partnership as we chart a new leadership track for the city government. Today is just another step on a road many of us have been on for a long time, part of an important conversation, part of a dialogue about how we create a shared vision for New York, a shared vision for how we can make that one city rising together. It's not a bad way to end a week that began honoring Martin Luther King. It was King who said that human progress is not automatic or inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice and struggle, and the tireless exertion and passionate concern of dedicated people, people like the ones in this room. So I wish you all the best on today's event. I think it will be the first of many to come. I'm very excited about this unique partnering of leadership in the community and leadership in the government. I think it's the first step on a great journey we'll begin together. So thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you so much, Tony. I'm Chloe Drew, Director of the Mayor's Office of Appointments, and this is my colleague, Commissioner Marco Carrion from the Community Affairs Unit. We're going to be very brief because we want to get right into the discussion and the purpose of this morning, but I just want to underscore Tony's words. The future and the dynamism of this city increasingly depends on a diverse leadership. We simply cannot do this work without a government that represents us. And to build a government that we want, to build a government that represents what we stand for takes constant work. We're never done with that. It takes constant vigilance and maintenance and care. And there's a reason that we've brought you all here together today, because we absolutely need your help. We're reaching out our hands and we're saying, let's do this in collaboration and in partnership. And we need a couple things from you. We need your creative ideas. We need talent that you recommend to us. In some cases, we're going to say we need you to raise your hands to serve on a board, in a job. On every one of your seats, we have a list of open senior level positions to the moment. We also have a list of boards that are looking for talented people to serve. And so we're going to be asking all of you to be part of that conversation today, but also ongoing. We have put together in this room, I think, a very special mix of people. We invited here today representation from every single agency in this government, which is really exciting. We also have in this room the CEOs, the presidents, the board chairs of some of our most significant and important nonprofit organizations that collectively represent thousands of constituents, thousands of diverse constituents. And we are really excited to have this conversation. We're so pleased that our illustrious commissioners have joined us this morning. But as importantly, if not more importantly, we are gathering you all here today because we want you to meet each other. If one thing happens, if you meet 5 people today, that will be success. So just quickly, I want to ask you to do something. If you are here from New York City government, you have a blue name tag on, can you raise your hand? Can you let us know that you're here, if you're here from an agency or from government? Can I ask you if, thank you so much, if you are here representing an organization, can you raise your hand? You have a white name tag on, raise your hand. Wonderful. So what I'd love to ask you to do is turn to your right, turn to your left, meet the person next to you. Hugging is not required, optional. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to bring you back in. We're going to have much more time for conversation. So before I acknowledge a few other special people, in addition to a lot of agency representation, we're really honored to have a few special commissioners with us here this morning, and I want to mention them because I think it's a testament. Commissioners are busy, they're running the city, but it's a testament to this room, to this effort, to the conversation we're going to have, that we have so many of them with us. Commissioner Stacey Cumberbatch is here, Commissioner Fidel Del Valle, Commissioner Stephen Banks, Commissioner Ana Bermudez, Commissioner Bill Chong, Commissioner Victor Calise, Commissioner Ann Roast, And Commissioner Dan Brunell, I think, is here. And I probably missed somebody because I didn't see you, but we're really grateful that you're here with us, all of you leaders. I also want to acknowledge the really hardworking staff from City Hall, from Appointments, from CAU, from DCAS, and we're here in the beautiful home of DOE, and everybody has pulled together to make this morning possible. I'm going to turn over to Marco, but just a quick heads up, we're going to have you do a little exercise later on. So after we have the panel discussion, we're going to ask you to do a little bit of an interactive small group discussion, nothing scary, it'll be fun. And now I'm going to turn over to Marco. Oh, one last reminder, we're very hip, we're in the 21st century here. We are having live tweeting discussion. The hashtag is LeadNYC. So please, if you have a Twitter account, please engage in the discussion. Over to Marco. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. So good morning, everyone. You know, it's great seeing everyone here today for this really important conversation. The beginning, we hope, is good conversations, constructive dialogue, and launching what we see as a really important endeavor. You know, today we're here to take this opportunity to talk about inclusive leadership, partnerships, and employment in city government. This is something which is personally very important to me, and when the mayor appointed me, one of the things he asked was that I reach out to all of the city's communities, populations, and make sure that they were plugged into what this city government was, and that everybody was represented in this city government. So this is something that was a charge that the mayor gave me, but it's something that's personally important. Our moderator today, Dr. Hector Cordero Guzman from Baruch College, is an academic leader in this area, and he has been a valuable thought partner and resource for helping us think about this conversation and how we can move forward. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Cordero Guzman and start this panel.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. Morning, everyone. Give Marco a hand. Thank you, First Deputy Mayor Shores, for your leadership and doing this event, and Chloe Drew from the Mayor's Office of Appointments, Valerie Kennedy also from the Office of Appointments, and Marco Carrion from the Community Assistance Unit. My goal, I think, will be to bottle the energy that was in the room when you were saying hello to each other, and hopefully be able to have a very strong conversation about the diversity imperative for our city. I represent the City University of New York School of Public Affairs, the largest and most diverse university in the country, and a huge asset and resource for the city. We train the workforce of the future of the city, and it's hugely important for all of us to continue to stay committed. And many of the initiatives that you'll hear from the agencies involve partnerships with our city university and some of our other, of course, partner schools in the enterprise of educating the next generation of public affairs leaders. Books have chapters, and I think this conversation is a next chapter of a continuing conversation the city's been having about how to more effectively build on our diversity, build on our inclusiveness, and build an equity agenda. New York City is a global city, and as you'll hear from all of our commissioners, the world is in New York City, but New York City is also a very local city. It's a city of neighborhoods and a city of neighbors. And I think the challenge and the mission and the opportunity for many of our commissioners and our departments is really to build on that dual mission of being a global city and also being a very local city. We have four wonderful commissioners that are going to be joining us in this conversation. I'll introduce them, and then I'll get the conversation started with the first question. First, we have Maria Torres Springer, who's the commissioner from the Department of Small Business Services. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you.
We have second Tom Finkenperl, who is the commissioner of the Department of Cultural Affairs, one of the huge assets of our city. Good morning, Tom. Also, Gladys Carrion, the commissioner for the Administration of Children's Services, and Gladys, as you know, has a very distinguished career in children's services. Of course, all of their bios are included in your program. And last, but certainly not least, we have Benjamin Tucker, the first deputy commissioner from our New York City Police Department. All of these agencies, all of these individuals, all of these commissioners have been tasked really with not just accomplishing the bricks and mortar day-to-day goals of their agencies, but to do it in a way that reflects the values of diversity, inclusiveness, and equity. And I think a good starting point for our conversation could be even the mayor's management report. Those of us that kind of teach and talk about budgets and talk about policy affirm very much that what's encoded in the mission that you get really should drive the work that you do. And the mayor's management report does have an equity blueprint in it in terms of some of the goals. So starting first with Maria and maybe then with Gladys and moving forward to first Deputy Commissioner Tucker and lastly to Tom Finkelper. Can you comment on how the mayor's management report and the more general leadership instructions that you've gotten from the administration shapes and frames the equity agenda within your agency?
I would be happy to. First of all, good morning, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here today. I've been looking forward to having this discussion. For those who don't know, SBS's mission is to help small businesses start, operate, and grow, to connect people to jobs, and to strengthen neighborhood retail corridors. So that's the mission. We've had it for a while. But what's been a profound opportunity in this administration is to take that mission and to really craft an equity agenda. And at SBS, the way we have made that pivot is to think about three pillars. Our job is to create good jobs, stronger businesses, and a fair economy. And what might seem like just a change of emphasis, really for us, though, has meant a total shift in not just what we do, but how we do it. So just very briefly, taking those in turn and how it's driven our work, in terms of good jobs, we were a big part of the public workforce system. We have made a very deliberate effort to shift that system from one that focuses, for instance, on the quantity of jobs that we place to the quality of jobs, caring much about wages and the benefits that are associated with the people who we connect to jobs. In terms of stronger businesses, a real effort on our part to understand the makeup of the small businesses in New York. We know, for instance, 6 in 10 New Yorkers are either immigrants or children of immigrants. Half of the small businesses in New York City are owned by immigrant New Yorkers. And so we have put together, in partnership with a number of folks who are actually in this room, community-based organizations, a real effort to ensure that we are working with the right organizations to deliver services to immigrant entrepreneurs across the city. And of course, in terms of a fairer economy, really redoubling our efforts to look at, for instance, our MWBE program and using the lever that we have, our spending, to ensure that we're providing contracting opportunities to diverse communities. So that's kind of what we're doing. But as importantly, it's that in doing this work, inclusive leadership, diversity, it's not just what you do, but how you do it. So let me just give a couple of examples of what that means for us and what I've been really heartened and inspired to see is happening across the administration. It's about doing this work with intention. And what that means is putting people together who may not have spoken to each other before about these issues, people who may not agree, but really being comfortable in what might be tension around these issues to get to a better outcome. It also means for us really trying to see the issues that we're tackling through the eyes of our partners and importantly of the public that we serve. We ask each other all the time on all projects, what would a human being think about this particular project? And it's only by asking that question and being honest about how we're actually able to answer it that we think we are going to be able to effectively drive the change in terms of policy. And a foundation of all of that is ensuring, of course, the main topic of this morning's conversation is that we have a leadership team and a frontline team that reflects in all of the aspects of one's identity, the communities that we are charged to serve.
Perfect. Commissioner Curry.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As you know, I'm the Commissioner of the Administration for Children's Services, and in that capacity, our agency really is responsible for the well-being of all children and families. And I run a really large and complex organization. And, you know, the mayor has been very, very intentional in not only assembling his senior team, as reflected by the people that are here today, but also charging us with a responsibility ensuring that our agencies are diverse and that our agencies reflect the populations that we're charged with serving. And so I think to echo what is said already is really looking in a very intentional way of doing this work of really understanding your agency. And a large agency like my agency, I have to rely on data. I have to make sure that I understand what my workforce looks like, that I understand the communities that my families and children come from, and that my workforce reflects that. And so at ACS, we've taken a very intentional look not only at the data, who are we? What do we look like? And much to my surprise, I must say that by 2017, 73% of my staff is eligible for retirement. So yes. So I need to be aware of that information because I have to plan, and we have to look at succession planning, and all of you need to find the people that will be the leadership and the workforce in my agency. And so one of the things that we have done at ACS is really creating a workforce diversity work group that really has my senior staff of everyone sharing a vision, and that's very important, understanding the importance to ensure that our leadership is diverse, that we seize the opportunity wherever possible to bring people in that reflect the range of diversity in the city of New York. And so my workforce diversity work group is looking at every part of the hiring process to see how we can very intentionally impact on that process to make sure that we have the right pool of people that are applying, that we have a process that is fair and inclusive in the selection, and that the actual outcome is one that reflects the needs of the agencies. For instance, my agency is about 72% female. So I need to make a concerted effort to have more men join my agency. So we talk about diversity within diversity, because my agency is 56% black. And that is important. But I also need to understand that there are other populations that we must reach out to be able to include the mosaic that we are in the city of New York. In order to do that, you need to do that in a very intentional way with all your divisions, all the senior people in your agency, for them to understand what the value is, to understand what the mayor's priorities are, and what your vision is in order to be able to carry out those priorities. So it is a work in progress that involves every single division in my agency, looking on how we hire and how we can improve that process. We also are conducting an employee engagement survey to be able to get from our staff their sense of how do they feel about their job? What's the morale? What are their plans for the future? And what changes do we need to implement in order to be able to do better at recruiting people to come into our agency? Once again, a very intentional, inclusive process where we ask everyone that's within the agency. We're obviously a sampling. My agency's, over 3,000 people, a sampling from every division to really get a sense of what the pulse is in the agency. We also have a racial equity and cultural competency group that meets to discuss and have those hard conversations that sometimes we find difficult to engage in, and to really create and have the training that we need to look at implicit bias, to look at race, and to look at how we do our work with our families who are primarily families of color. How does that inform our work? And so that certainly is a work in progress as we continue to engage and provide training throughout our agency and with our external partners. We also have an Office of LGBT Policy and Practice, where we very intentionally have developed policy and procedures and training that really looks at how do we create an environment that is tolerant and respectful of everyone and inclusive of everyone. And how do we do that with our partners? Because many of you know ACS, we have lots and lots of partners that we rely on doing the work. And so it really is about carrying that message and doing it in a way that will result in really making a difference in how your workforce looks, how we treat each other, how we respect each other, and how we're very conscious of who we have to serve and the kinds of skills and competencies we need to have in order to do our work well.
Thank you, Commissioner Carrion. First Deputy Commissioner Tucker, can you talk to us for a couple of minutes about the diversity imperative within the NYPD and some of the strategies you're adopting?
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone here. I'm privileged to have been asked to join the panel, talk to you a little bit about what's happening in NYPD right now, and certainly I'm sure it's not lost on anyone in this room the challenges that we face and have been facing in the last several months. But it's important to note those because this conversation, when we talk about, Gladys mentioned implicit bias, we have to talk about race. When you talk about issues of legitimacy and fairness and equity, you can't have that discussion without talking about our public safety initiatives in the city and the way in which our 35,000 police officers do their jobs every day and how they encounter police officers. So I see this conversation as certainly as it relates to diversity is important, but there are a whole host of other issues that are implicated around training, recruitment, certainly, and so forth. So, what I would do is just talk a little bit about where we are and now and where we were. And for context, I joined, just to give you some background, I joined the New York City Police Department in 1969 when I graduated from high school as a police trainee. And in those days, not only the New York City Police Department, but pretty much police departments everywhere in this country were predominantly male whites. And so some of you in the room will remember, are old enough to remember the challenges of the 60s and what we were facing with respect to the riots. And so in some ways, what's happening today and the issues around, Garner and other places in the country and our challenges with stop and frisk and those issues all are very familiar. Some things haven't changed. So we are working on those, but they all have a nexus to the notion of what our police officers look like in part. And so when I came in, as I said, mostly male white, the country has moved, I think, and made terrific progress in terms of where we are with what police departments look like. And certainly that's true here in New York City, because most people don't realize that right now the majority of our patrol officers are basically majority are minority individuals. And that's a good thing for the city. For the first time in years, the police department, the patrol officers you see on the street every day are a reflection of the diversity of the city, both in terms of ethnicity and race, but also in terms of gender, for sure. Things have improved tremendously. And so I think we're in a good place there, but we can do better, particularly in our senior ranks. While we have a 52.7% of our officers that are non-white, I think we only are roughly around 19, just over 19% in our senior ranks, captain and above. And so we all know that leadership is really key to driving the policies and the operations of our agencies. And it starts at the top, and to the extent that the management style is one in which it doesn't pay attention to that fact, and also doesn't pay attention to not just understanding it, but then figuring out how to address it and how to nurture it and how to move the policies that reflect that are focused on equity, focused on fairness, focused on diversity, from the top to the bottom is critical. And of course, training is central to all of this, and the messaging around training is critical. So I see this, as we talk about recruitment, we are, I think, in a good place, as I said. Our recruitment within our personnel operations are not as good as I'd like it to be. And so I'm sitting in this new role as First Deputy now for only just about 2 months. But it's a good place to be. When I returned to the department in March, I came back as the Deputy Commissioner for Training. to work for who I believe is a terrific leader in Bill Bratton. And that's one of the reasons, the only reason I came back in part. The other reason is I grew up in Brooklyn, and I was coming home. Yeah, you can applaud. And I was coming back to a department that I spent 22 years in as a police officer in various assignments. And so I care a lot about this department, and as I watch some of the things happening here around stop and frisk, it was clear to me that we needed to be doing things differently, and those are all linked to a variety of issues, in part having to do with making sure our officers understand the law, but also making sure that they as they do their jobs, they understand that fairness and equity and constitutional policing should be uppermost in that equation. So I won't belabor this.
I think we're. Thank you, First Deputy Commissioner and Commissioner Finkelpearl. If you can talk to us for a couple of minutes about the Department of Cultural Affairs, and then we'll move to a lightning round.
Okay, sure. So you gave the shout out to Brooklyn. I just spent the last 12 years in Queens, where diversity is front and center every single day. Right? We all know that. So we have a situation where you have hundreds of jobs, you have thousands of jobs, you have tens of thousands of jobs. At the Cultural Affairs Department, we're a small department. We're a funding agency. So we give away hundreds of millions of dollars a year, but our agency itself only has 62 jobs. I will say it is more than 50% people of color, and we're working on that also in relationship to the number of Spanish-speaking staff members has to increase. We're well aware of that, and that is happening. But the Cultural Affairs Department is the landlord for 33 major cultural institutions in New York City, and we fund 950 others. So the Metropolitan Museum, the Museum of Natural History, the zoos, the gardens, the Brooklyn Museum, et cetera. We're the landlord, and we're the biggest funder for those organizations. Just within those 33 organizations, there are 10,000 jobs. Statistics in America, so while we're more than 50% people of color, statistics in America nationally show that less than 10% of the workforce in museums are people of color, and 9% of audiences at cultural institutions in America are people of color. It's an overwhelmingly we're like when you entered the police department, maybe. We haven't done the survey in New York City that says exactly who's working at what institutions, but we're going to roll that out. So we have a diversity initiative for the field that's going to roll out at the Ford Foundation next week. We have a group of people who have achieved diversity in their staffs, their boards, their audiences, who are going to speak to the field. We want to do it in a way that's not, punitive, that it's about going forward, but to say to the cultural field, it's time to look in the mirror and see who's working at these institutions. What is the staff, the board, the artists, the audiences of these institutions? And it's just about survival in the future. To have an organization in a city that's majority-minority, so to speak, we have to stop using the word minority for the majority, that the future... The future is a diverse workforce. I worked at the Queens Museum. We had more than 50% people of color. It was a great place to work. It was fun to go to work every day. There was that this is not a burden on these cultural institutions. This is going to make it a better place, a more creative environment. And so anyway, so that's our focus isn't on our jobs, although we are very going to carefully look at that and what constitutes our workforce. But getting out the leverage, you're talking about the leverage points that we have as city agencies, have to do with the field, and there are tens of thousands of jobs in the field, and that's what we're focusing on.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner. Despite my attempts to try to slow the passage of time down, we need to wind down, and we probably have a couple of minutes each to discuss a couple of key initiatives in your department that you're launching, that you're excited about, that you think are going to be significant in terms of driving the imperative agenda. And I know, First Deputy Commissioner Tucker, you wanted to talk a little bit about the role of technology in some of these issues. So if you could take a couple of minutes each, starting from First Deputy Commissioner Tucker and moving our way back.
Sure. Yeah. Just in the interest of time, I'll just give you a sense of we're doing a variety of things in this new administration to manage the department in a very different way, all with a view toward trying to address some of these concerns that I referenced earlier around the gap that exists between police and a number of our communities. Most of those communities tend to be minority communities of color. So we are, just in terms of technology, I think that this year, 2015, will be a banner year. Last year we started to use social media to get our message out, to have our commanding officers, our local commanding officers, 77 precinct commanders, as well as our 9 housing districts and our transit districts, all of whom began to we trained them and put them on Twitter accounts, and these commanding officers began to engage in conversations that way, communicate that way. It's been terrific, and so now we are citywide in that respect. In addition, a number of our executive staff are also on Twitter. We started a Facebook account. We have an Instagram account. So in terms of how to communicate, particularly how to communicate with young people, which is, we all know that's where they spend a lot of their time, it's really the place where we need to be. Also from the perspective of counterterrorism, which is a major concern to this city, it helps us keep track of and monitor what the chatter is out there. So the technology in that regard has been really helpful. We are about to roll out, starting next month, every police officer, all 35,000 of them, will have smartphones that will give them the capacity to tap into our various databases. It'll make them more efficient, certainly keep them well informed, and from a public safety standpoint, we can get information in their hands instantly to help them do their jobs better and certainly serve the communities that they serve much more effectively. You've all heard about cameras, and there's been lots of debate about the notion of having our officers wear body cams. So we are in the process right now of testing with 54 officers in a number of different precincts around the city, trying to get a handle on what that will look like pursuant to some of the court order that came out of the Floyd case. And so we're pursuing that, testing it, seeing how it'll work. Of course, the idea here is that there'll be transparency and really give everyone the opportunity to have information and be able to see what the encounters look like, the transactions between our police and our citizens are. And the hope will be that those officers who, and we have some who are mostly inclined to be disrespectful and do the kinds of things that they shouldn't be doing. Hopefully, this will begin to drive some of that conduct in a different direction. So that's just some examples in terms of the technology,
Thank you.
Which is a major, I think, step forward.
Commissioner Carrion?
So there are 2 initiatives. One, I mentioned our work group diversity, which I'm really excited about because I really, there's a lot of discretion in exercise in hiring, and I want to be able to dissect that system within ACS and be able to inform how discretion is exercised, and that's really important. But the other initiative that I'm very excited about is creating a pathway to civil service jobs, and I'm looking forward to a partnership with DCAS to really create pathways for young people in foster care who are aging out, and also in my juvenile justice system, to come to entry into the civil service. Those are great jobs for our young people. In the past, we've had some not good outcomes for young people in foster care aging out. We want to make sure that they have opportunity for good jobs that pay a livable wage, and so we've gotten private dollars to be able to launch a pilot, and we will do that in partnership with DCAS, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited the partnerships we have with CUNY. And Hector, we have some wonderful partnerships with the School of Social Work. We need to focus in creating that pipeline of creating the future workforce, and what better partners than CUNY. Not only Schools of Social Work, but interesting also John Jay. I run the juvenile justice system, and really working with them to be able to have a trained workforce. So those are some of the initiatives we're working on.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Finkelpearl.
So I just mentioned 2 things. One is CUNY, yes. I sat down with the chancellor the other day. If you look at CUNY with 250,000 matriculated students, those are the self-selected smart kids from New York City. It looks like New York City. I'm a proud Hunter alum. And that, we got Hunter here. But if you look at the graduate program at the Graduate Center in Art History, it doesn't look like New York City. We got to get that pipeline going with those great PhD students as well. And just secondly, in terms of getting folks to the cultural institutions, that diversity in terms of the people entering. Here's my municipal ID card.
Yes.
Working, this has been this unbelievable success, sort of overwhelming success for the city. 130,000 people already have appointments. But when you get your card, you get the option to go to those 33 cultural institutions I mentioned earlier and get a free 1-year membership at each of those institutions. And don't panic if you don't get your card until September. From the time you walk in the door and get your free membership, it's 1 year from then. All right? So the idea is to open the doors of those institutions, to make them the truly open, public, democratic institutions, which is what they were founded to be. And they are that, but they could be even more that. And I just also finally want to say that when we talk about diversity, we're talking about gender, age, disability, race. We're talking a lot about race today, but that's not how we're defining disability.
Commissioner Torres-Springer.
Sure. So what I'm excited about is the opportunity to continue to do and to do even better some of the things that we've started over the last several months. So let's give you a couple quick examples. Several days when I joined the administration, we embarked on a strategic planning process. We have the benefit of not being a particularly large agency, but everyone in the agency was involved in that. We literally sat with every person in groups across the agency as a way to ensure that that we were creating an inclusive environment for people to engage in different ways in the mission of the organization, to contribute in their own ways, to exert their own leadership, and to create conversations that hadn't happened before. I'm excited to continue that as we forge ahead with a number of new initiatives. Another thing that I'd love to see continue to move forward in the way that it has is the work that we're doing to really better serve immigrants across the city. And to give you an example of one of the things how we've done it there is I made very clear that I was not interested in pilot programs to help special populations. That wasn't the way we were going to help immigrant entrepreneurs. That this was a matter of fundamentally changing the way we deliver services because this is our constituency. And that work was not just my work and was not just the work of our deputy commissioners. So we've convened, for instance, a working group of people across the organization, different levels, may or may not have sat together before, and to ask them what does it mean to create institutional change on this issue. Not just what's the little program that we're going to do, but what does it mean in terms of our contracts? What does it mean in terms of marketing? What does it mean in terms of language access? And that's the approach that I'm very much looking forward to taking across different initiatives to ensure that we are including as many people as possible in the mission of the organization, but doing it in a way that ensures that we are getting a true diversity of opinion so that the ultimate service that we are providing is one that we believe can really drive impact in our communities.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We literally have 1 minute for each of you. We have many people in the audience that may be wondering, what is the single best way me, my organization, my agency, my community can interact with you and help in this process? I know it's unfair to put you on the spot for 1 minute each, but if something comes to mind, what is the best way our audience, our communities can engage with your agency? Starting with First Deputy Commissioner Tucker.
Well, I suspect that there are people here representing organizations where we already are touching base in a variety of ways. Certainly at the ground level, in communities and neighborhoods, one of the things that's important is to have our police officers be in touch with your agencies and your staff at the grassroots level, because the populations, the community people that we serve are the same clients that you have and deal with on a regular basis. And we already have some of these partnerships well underway. We're continuing those partnerships, and we're trying to make them much more robust as we go forward. I just had some conversations this morning. I just ran into a colleague I haven't seen in years, and we've been talking. And so that's, I think, the recognition that, police officers are first responders, but very often, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's mental illness, whatever those issues are, it really is helpful, and we can make this city even greater to the extent that we communicate on that level and be able to provide services that can't be provided by us, but we can, if we have the ability to make the proper referrals, things will also be heading in the right direction.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Carrion?
So I think that probably we have an Office of Community Partnership, and I think that probably is the best way to engage with our agency. Eric Breschneider is here, who is the Office of Community Partnership is under his portfolio, and I think many of you have my email address, so you feel free.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
So I think that we just launched our social media platforms. Our social media manager is right back there. So Twitter, Facebook, we want to be much more two-way interactive in our communication, and that's about 3 weeks old, those accounts. So become, interact with us that way.
Terrific.
There's no wrong way to do it. You can email, call me, any members of our staff, social media. The one thing I'll say, though, is what I'd really love and encourage everyone in this room is to really challenge us to really push forward this work as aggressively as possible. No one agency, no one organization can do this work alone. No one has the sufficient resources or expertise to tackle this. And in particular, whether it's ensuring we're getting talent from just not the traditional talent pools, or the way we do not just community outreach but community engagement, I'd love to make sure that we are getting and having that two-way conversation about novel ways to do this work, so that we are bringing new and hopefully disruptive solutions to what we all know are longstanding and really enormous and complex challenges.
Thank you very much. I think we're all here because we share the values of diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and we're here to engage in conversation where we also have people in our panel that are actually day in, day out doing that work, not simply just having conversation about it. And I hope you agree with me that we are blessed in New York City to have some exceptional, committed, thoughtful, principled public servants. So please join me in thanking them for their time and their participation this morning. And I will pass you right back to Ms. Chloe Drew.
Probably going to embarrass her, but tomorrow is Commissioner Racehorse for his birthday. So now we're going to ask you to do something a little bit interactive, but not just because we want you all to continue to talk to me, but because we need you. So we need your ideas, we need your creativity. Around the room, we have 4 posters with questions, some of which we asked here, some of which we didn't get to yet. We want to ask you to go to each one of them. There's a staff person. Raise your hand if you're a staff person at one of the posters. There's Post-it notes and there's pens. They're questions like, how would you think about integrating technology into diversity and equity agendas? A conversation we started here, we want to continue to get your thoughts. So we want multiple ideas from you. So we're going to ask you to stand up in just a minute after we make some final thank yous and go to the posters. You can go to all 4, you can go to 2, you can go to 1. As you do it, make sure to meet the other people around the room. You're certainly also welcome to refresh your coffee to get your brain working again. But with that, I'm going to ask Valerie Kennedy, my colleague, and Marco Carrion to say just a final quick words and quick thank yous. And we're so grateful that you came to join us this morning. Valerie Kennedy with some thank yous.
Thank you all for coming. I want to thank our commissioners, and I want to thank all of our guests here. We know we gave up your Friday morning to be with us, but I think that we provide a really, insightful conversation about what this administration stands for and what we're trying to achieve in terms of diversity. I want to acknowledge some people who made this event very special. Assistant Commissioners Rebecca Sill and David Kwong. I don't know if they're here. Justin Mui, the building manager, who was incredibly helpful. I want to thank our taping crew, Amir and Elliot in the back, our photographers. And I also just want to thank all the folks from DCAS, Fenimore Fisher, who's in the audience somewhere. There you are, Fenimore. Thank you, Fenimore. We've just had so much love and support shown in connection with this event, and your being here is really an affirmation that we're on the right path. So thank you all very, very much. I'll turn it over to the Commissioner.
Thank you, everyone. And now I invite everyone to go to their breakout session. Thank you.